What up, everybody? Gonna talk now about the New York Football Giants on this video. Um, I've been telling you guys for a couple of years now, or since last year, that Daniel Jones was done. I told you that I think even before right after the Denver game. Um, and that's going to end up being the downside. Oftentimes, the downside of coaches is actual quarterbacks. You're looking at Scott Frost in Nebraska, University of Michigan a little bit. You could look at a quarterback that is very marginal and not good, and that is oftentimes the problem. A little bit of Zimmer and Kirk Cousins, Carr and Gruden maybe to a certain degree. Even though Carr's playing better now, but it was looking that way for a little while. Tannehill in Miami, you could look at failed regimes that way through a quarterback. Sam Darnold and Adam Gase, for example. So the thing is with the New York Giants is that their offensive line is okay. They don't have any running back depth on the roster. All right, Dearness Johnson from the Cleveland Browns is a talented running back. They could have went out there and got Mark Ingram in free agency. They weren't proactive enough. The Giants should also have James Morgan on the roster. They should have also traded for Drew Lock. Jacob Eason was on this roster. Those are all better quarterbacks than Daniel Jones. Those guys all have elite level arms. You look at what Mike White was able to do for the New York Jets, and he could end up being a really, really good quarterback in this league. Daniel Jones does not produce points. He's very much like Adrian Martinez at Nebraska. Is at any time the game comes down to Daniel Jones, he does not deliver and he does not win. And we saw this a little bit with the Dallas Cowboys. We saw it with the Washington Redskins in week 2. Daniel Jones, he doesn't hit Darius Slayton. But then in the end, when you need to have a drive from Daniel Jones to put the game away, he does not do it. Situationally, this team with Daniel Jones, when you watch Mac Jones, you know that situationally he's going to get the job done. You know, with Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger, with Russell Wilson, with Deshaun Watson, with Lamar Jackson. What quarterbacks do you watch and you're really scared that they're going to end up winning the game? When I watched Lamar Jackson play the Colts, I knew Lamar Jackson was coming back and winning that game. When you look at Kyler Murray on a third down, you know Kyler Murray's going to get it because of his situational awareness, his ability. Just like Aaron Rodgers beating the Cowboys in the postseason. When you got to have it moments, Daniel Jones doesn't do it, combined with his lack of any elite quality and any elite trait. He is tall, but he has weak arm strength. I'd say Mike White has bigger intermediate arm strength than Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones throws wobblers, his feet, he's inaccurate, and he's not an accurate quarterback. He doesn't even have that good of an arm. And I'm really not impressed with Daniel Jones. And then he doesn't stride into his throws. He doesn't. He fades away when he goes into his throws. This offensive scheme is absolutely atrocious too. They don't attack the red area. I mean, Evan Ingram, I'm surprised he wasn't moved, but Evan Ingram, I mean, listen, when you get the ball in the middle of the field, you need to produce and you need to score touchdowns right there when you get into the red area. And the New York Giants against the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, the New York Giants, after that Elijah Penny penalty there for taunting, the Giants had the ball there. And any good quarterback like Herbert, Derek Carr, to play in this league, you have to be a great quarterback. They would have driven the team down offensively to score in the red zone or to get a field goal. They would have drowned out the clock. They would have won the game. That's what elite level guys do. Your defense held the Chiefs juggernaut team to, what was it, 17 points? I mean, you have Kadarius Toney. Shepard played, but then gets injured. I mean, it's unbelievable. The Giants' offense with Daniel Jones is absolutely terrible. It's a terrible offense. And you had Mac Jones sitting there right in your lap. The Giants didn't take Mac Jones. And the Patriots are going to end up winning a bunch of games with Mac Jones because the Giants didn't take Mac Jones, who was accurate and is better already than Daniel Jones. So it's so annoying. It's a Jones problem. Garrett's problem, and the Giants now are going to have to use these picks, and they're either going to get Willis if he's available. Willis is my number one quarterback because of his mobility. And just for defenses, it's just going to be so hard to stop Malik Willis. He is a superstar. Carson Strong's going to be really good too. Carson Strong has elite arm strength, much more elite than Daniel Jones, plays aggressively, is more kind of outwardly competitive. Daniel Jones, like everyone talked about Herbert being quiet and that being a problem. Daniel Jones a little too quiet on the field. He needs to expect more from his teammates in year 3 or he's going to get replaced. He doesn't read it that well. I mean, he doesn't throw it all that accurately. What fan base is really going to want Daniel Jones as their quarterback? Maybe Denver. I mean, Jones can be okay for a few games, but he's not a consistently really, really good quarterback, and he should be headed into kind of his prime years. I would take Baker Mayfield and his abilities of throwing darts and leadership and all of that and mobility way over Daniel Jones. So whatever, call me a hater now on Jones. It's funny because on draft night, everybody was haters. Then I gave him an opportunity, and now it's clearly not working. It's the offense's fault. I mean, the defense can have its bad games, and it hasn't been great. The defense has sucked. Even against the Saints, the defense was really bad. And then the team just quit against the Rams because that's what bad teams are going to do. When you're 2 in a million, you're going to quit some weeks. And then you're going to have a really good game, against the Panthers. And then you're going to back it up with a really good performance against the Kansas City Chiefs defensively. But eventually, your defense is going to check out. That's why the Raiders are probably going to house like 40 on the Giants. It's not going to be competitive because you're 2-6. The coaches' voices are getting tired. Eventually, no matter how mentally tough you are, and the Lions are even a mentally tough team, when you don't win any games, the cupboard's going to break. Just like the Jags this week. Eventually, the bad teams break. When you get to November and December, that's what you see happen. Sometimes they'll hang tough, but then they'll break when they have no momentum. And that's what's going to happen with this awful team. And it's not a fluke anymore. Losing all of those games, the Graham Gano field goal, the Jake Elliott thing, you could point that to a fluke. When you're constantly losing one-score games, it ain't a fluke. It's because your quarterback and your offense, when they need to get a first down, is unable to get it. When your defense needs to just simply make a play and get off the field, they're not able to make those plays. They're not able to play complementary, and it's really, really frustrating. I think Joe Judge kind of knows what he wants. I don't know. He's from he coached with Saban. So at Alabama, you get the best talent. And everybody who's not Nick Saban is not really Nick Saban other than Kirby Smart, right? Jimbo was decent. Jimbo's a decent coach, right? And then, gosh. And then you look at Bill Belichick, and he wants to run the football. He wants to have this really disciplinary style like Brian Flores, not really have any personality. And the Patriots, it's not even about Coach Belichick. It's all about, the guys that Belichick recruits, the assistant coaches now that are under him, like Steve Belichick, like Nick Faley, like Cunningham, all these diamonds in the rough that he acquires in that Patriots building. It's about the ownership. It's about even more than just Bill Belichick himself. It's about the people that he aligns himself with. It's with Josh McDaniels for 20 years and Joe Judge pretty much deciding on Jason Garrett just because he filled a quota as a head coach. And just because he played with the Giants a long time ago, it just wasn't a creative move. And Judge offensively does not know what he wants to do. He does not know his identity. He does not realize that Daniel Jones is not a next level quarterback that makes defenses afraid, that doesn't. And the Giants, their ability that they did not go out and try to give a third rounder for Drew Lock and let Drew Lock start. It's predictable, but it's disappointing. And now this team's going to go to the draft, and Joe Judge made his bed with Daniel Jones because Joe Judge is a special teams guy, and he doesn't have the intellect to understand about how you need an explosive quarterback. He's a stubborn guy when it comes to offense, and unless Joe Judge can see that like a Malik Willis is a better route to go, and that Jones doesn't have these elite level traits, you're going to be stuck with this team, and you're going to be stuck coming up with excuses about losing. The whole offense ultimately comes down to the GM, and Dave Gettleman, who's selecting these guys, and Gettleman's losing. And the thing is about Gettleman, we could talk about these draft picks. These guys get injured all the time. I think there's questions about whether they want to play there, whether they want to be there because they're constantly losing. And you got to get a good quarterback, to really be decently successful in this NFL. You got to get a quarterback that can win you games. Can you be decent enough to win? You look at Jimmy Garoppolo, even he gets pushed by the Chicago Bears, but he puts up 34 points. You know, it's like Jimmy Garoppolo can put up points. Like even though that offense, even though the running game is really good, he's still checking in the run plays. Like, listen, if you're a quarterback and you're consistently putting up really good numbers year after year wherever you go, then you're a decent quarterback. Even Ryan Tannehill is decent. I don't love Ryan Tannehill's game, but he's doing a decent job of putting up points, even without Arthur Smith. Can you consistently put up points? That's what it's all about. And then when you get down to the situations, like you look at the Patriots and their drive against the Chargers, I'd all aspire to have people watch that drive. The Patriots are up by 7. All right. They get the ball back with 8 minutes to go. And then they proceed to go on like basically a 6 or 7 minute drive, snapping the ball with 10 seconds left, 5 seconds left on the play clock. They run it up the gut. Then on second down, when the defense is expecting another run, they throw it to the outside. They get a first down. The receiver falls down and bounce. The clock continues to move. They just had that 6-minute drill mapped out perfectly. And the Giants haven't operated a 6-minute drill, since the Eli years, since the Tom Coughlin years. They've never had the right mix ever. You look at McAdoo, personality issues, leadership issues, no defensive identity, really poor. Shermer, decent guy, like a nice guy, but kind of his offense was stale. It wasn't creative enough, and his defensive coordinator Betcher was not creative enough either. Then you look at the Giants with Joe Judge, decent personality, kind of not for everybody type of personality, a very tough disciplinarian type of guy. But the game is a little bit different than it was under Bill Parcells in that now you just have to be just very offensively innovative to move the ball. There was back when Parcells was really successful and it was more of a militaristic type of coach. It was more about the trenches, and the Giants trenches aren't even that effective, but you know, back in the 90s when the Giants were really good, you can hit the quarterback a little bit. There wasn't as much pass interference. And now the game is really played and slanted towards the offense. And all the good teams, all the elite teams like Rodgers and Brady, they all have receivers, they all have big passing plays. It's all offense. Because that's kind of the ways that the refs are, and that's kind of the ways that you're getting guys out of college now. Is even Nick Saban even said so himself. He's a defensive guy. He said your defense has to be situationally very good, but offensively you're going to have a tremendous offense if you're going to try to win at a consistent level. And the Giants, it's all from an offensive problem. And Daniel Jones, I mean, I know he has a lot of people in his corner. If the Giants again roll with him next year, it's going to be a bunch of the same thing. So, you look at the possible GMs and the situations that are out there. Can Joe Judge, can he have a talk with ownership, and can he bring in maybe, I would love to see Dan Mullen be an offensive coordinator with this team. Dan Mullen, groomed Prescott and Alex Smith. He has some innovative concepts. His full job will be an offensive coordinator. You want a guy that's either his full job as his offensive coordinator, all right, who's comfortable being an offensive coordinator that can operate RPOs and is very aggressive with downfield schemes and has unique game plans. Pat Graham is a really good defensive coordinator. He was really good last year. He was terrific last week. The players are getting used to his scheme. All right. A lot of injuries on defense. McKinney gets hurt. It's unbelievable. 13 guys, now out. It's just incredible. And it's constant negative, no winning going on. And listen, when you're kind of like Judge, you're not like innovating. Your message is repeating a lot. guys are going to check out because you're not getting the result that you want, and who knows if it's as fun as other places. And you even look at, Brandon Staley even has good weeks. The Eagles in their offense is pretty is interesting. They change week to week a little bit with their offense. Jalen Hurts gives you a running component. The Eagles offense can move the ball some halves. Even Atlanta can have some interesting offense with Kyle Pitts and Matt Ryan. The Giants offense has been bad for a really long time. It's bad coordinators. It's Jason Garrett. It's Pat Shurmur. You're talking about two guys that are not creating interesting concepts in their game plans. And it's not just because they're older guys. You could be older and still be innovative in your scheme, just like Greg Roman is innovative in his scheme. All right. You look at Joe Lombardi of the Chargers, has been with the Saints. Sean Payton is really innovative. McDaniels himself and the Patriots are innovative in their schemes. Greg Roman, like I said. So, man, it's tough. You want to find a good offensive coordinator next year, whoever, if it's going to be the OC or the head coach, you got to have an offensive coordinator. You got to get Malik Willis or Carson Strong, and you got to get them in the draft. You got to build your team. If it's Carson Strong, you're going to have a vertical passing game. You get a couple good guards up front. You're good to go. The defense is good. There's talent on this team. Like Galladay will be here under control. Leonard Williams. There's talent in the middle of this defense. Dexter Lawrence. Logan Ryan's playing well. Jabril Peppers is going to come back next year. Xavier McKinney. I mean, the cupboard isn't bare for a new coach and a GM here. You look at Tony as a talent. Saquon is still going to be on the roster as a decent running back. You got to get another running back, obviously, to supplement a little bit, like an Alexander Madison or something. You have Rudolph. You have guys you can use like Evan Ingram. This roster is actually a decent roster. It needs a quarterback. It needs touching up around the edges, but it's not a dire situation. And ironically, Gettleman's going to leave the next GM and whatever in a better situation. A little bit like John Dorsey. I mean, I got on John Dorsey because of really bringing in these personalities that didn't gel, and they haven't had sustained success in Cleveland, but they were able to get to a playoff round because they did have talent on the roster. And the Giants defense, I do think that they have talent on the roster, especially defensively. And they're really competitive, like when they're motivated to play. They just need a quarterback and you could find this in a rookie quarterback, a quarterback that can really score a lot of points with, guy with special traits. Jones is an all right quarterback. He's smart, can be accurate when need be, can move the ball a little bit in the league. He's not that good though. He's kind of bottom type quarterback, bottom 10, bottom, probably the 20th best quarterback. And you got to do better than that. To be able to play like Daniel Jones. Like Daniel Jones has to have the killer instinct and the football intellect and anticipation skills of Joe Burrow. Because Joe Burrow, he doesn't really check the boxes of mobility or arm strength or things that you really look for. And he's similar skill set to Jones, but he has a little bit better mechanics. He's less rangy of a quarterback. But he can anticipate better, and his competitiveness is elite. So he's an elite competitor. That's a talent. That's a talent of an elite competitor and a leader. So that's kind of where the Giants are at right now. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well.